Hi, welcome back.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications. Ashley called out casually, her tone breezy yet hurried. She stood by the front door, pushing it open with one hand while her purse dangled awkwardly from her shoulder. Honey, can you grab the car keys for me? I had to leave the car on the street. The trash bin was blocking the driveway. Maybe put it back in its place and pull the car in. Noah, still in the kitchen, answered, Sure, and walked into the living room. Her purse had been tossed carelessly on the couch. He picked it up, unzipped the side pocket, and searched inside for the keys. His fingers brushed past a perfume bottle and her wallet until they landed on something unexpected, a neatly folded slip of paper.
It was a receipt.
Across the top in bold print was the name Hillside Bar and Grill, a high-end restaurant across town. Noah's pulse slowed as if the air around him had thickened. The date printed was from the night before, the exact time she had claimed she'd been at an office meeting.
He studied the details. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of wine. It didn't fit.
Ashley always said she avoided alcohol during the week, insisting she was too focused and disciplined for indulgences. And yet, here was proof of a full dinner for 2 at a place they had never visited together. His hands trembled, not from wind or chill, but from what the slip of paper suggested. He folded it carefully, placing it back in the pocket exactly as he had found it, then retrieved the car keys and stepped outside. The trash bin still blocked the garage, sitting squarely on the sidewalk. He dragged it to its usual corner and then parked the car with practiced ease. The motions came automatically, though that night each small task seemed heavier, weighted with unspoken meaning. When he returned inside, Ashley was already upstairs.
The sound of running water carried through the house.
Noah drifted into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and stared blankly at the rows of containers and bottles. After a long pause, he closed the door without taking anything. Outwardly, everything appeared normal, but inside, something restless flickered awake, an unnamed unease. Ashley came back down, her hair damp, dressed in worn sweats. Want to watch an episode? She asked, referring to the show they usually kept up with.
Sure, Noah replied.
But by then she was already curled on the couch, laughing at something on her phone. He sat beside her, tried to talk about a work problem with a client. She responded with a distracted, That's crazy. You'll figure it out. The evening wore on as if nothing were unusual, yet Noah couldn't push aside the thought of that receipt. He forced smiles, tried to keep the rhythm of their usual conversations, but every word she spoke sounded rehearsed, every laugh hollow. Later, when she announced she was tired and went upstairs, Noah lingered in the living room. The silence pressed in, punctuated only by the exaggerated ticking of the wall clock. The house felt larger, emptier. When he finally climbed the stairs, Ashley was in bed, face glowing in the dark from her phone screen. Noah lay down beside her, turned away, and stared at the wall. His mind, though, replayed fragmented memories and the image of that folded paper, like the opening line of a story he wasn't sure he wanted to read. In the days that followed, his perspective shifted. He began noticing not just her words, but how she spoke them, the hesitations, the clipped endings to conversations, the subtle distance. Phrases that once seemed ordinary now carried hidden weight. Ashley said she was exhausted from work, yet she had new energy in the mornings. She appeared in fresh outfits, wore more makeup than usual, and carried a perfume Noah had never smelled before. He said nothing, but every detail lodged in his mind, another piece of a puzzle without a picture. Her routines changed, too. She lingered longer in front of the mirror, especially on Wednesdays. Office nights stretched later and later. She smiled at messages on her phone, quickly flipping it face down whenever Noah entered the room. She claimed stress, said she needed space, and preferred skipping long conversations during the week.
Noah pretended not to notice. But deep down, he did.
Ashley proposed they spend some time apart, each focusing on themselves, claiming it would give them clarity. The explanation rolled off her tongue too smoothly, as if it had been rehearsed. One morning, she rushed out, mentioning an off-site meeting. The second the gate clicked shut, Noah went straight to their bedroom. He slid open her drawer and reached for the leather-bound planner she never went a day without using. Flipping to that date, he expected a full page of notes, times, and tasks. Instead, a single red slash stretched across the space.
No meetings. No reminders. Nothing. It was completely out of character.
He placed the planner back precisely where she left it, standing still for a moment as the faint trace of her new perfume lingered in the air. Later that afternoon, Ashley came home in unusually high spirits, carrying takeout and chattering about her day. She began retelling a funny story about a co-worker, casually referring to them as he before quickly correcting herself to she. Noah kept a straight face, pretending not to catch the slip. Pretending had become second nature that week, so much so that he barely recognized his own home anymore.
Weekends didn't escape the changes either.
She brushed off their usual plans, grocery shopping, a movie night, even a visit to his parents. Instead, she claimed exhaustion or pressing reports that couldn't wait. Hours slipped away with her holed up in her room, headphones on, smiling at her laptop screen. She said she'd gotten hooked on a new series, but when Noah asked what it was called, her answer stumbled out, thin and unconvincing. Meanwhile, sleep abandoned him. He would lie awake through the night, ears straining at every sound, the creak of the house, her footsteps across the floor, the soft clicks of her phone. His chest tightened whenever she hugged him quickly, the gestures feeling less like affection and more like obligation.
The most painful part wasn't arguments, it was the absence of them.
She showed no interest in fighting for their connection, moving through the days with the detachment of someone whose heart had already left, even though her body remained. One evening while she showered, Noah unzipped her purse. Inside, he found a bright shade of lipstick she never wore at home and a pair of long earrings that clashed with her usual style. Sitting on the couch, he turned them over in his hands, trying to imagine the version of Ashley that existed outside their walls, the version she never showed him. With a heavy sigh, he returned everything, glanced out the window, and realized something inside him had already broken. When she walked out of the bathroom moments later, smiling as if nothing had changed, he forced a smile back. It was hollow, automatic, but beneath it lay a quiet resolution. Stop pressing for answers. Just watch. That night, staring up at the ceiling until his eyes burned, he felt his thoughts spiral out of control. Tiny lies, forced laughter, the new perfume, hidden smiles, all the unfamiliar things she carried. These weren't fragments anymore.
They were the outline of a life that didn't include him.
Ashley was slipping away, piece by piece, replaced by someone he barely recognized. The next morning, as she brushed her teeth, Noah studied her reflection. She avoided his eyes in the mirror, moving quickly as though sharing space with him had become a burden. She left in a rush, muttering excuses about traffic and deadlines, but to Noah, they sounded like nothing more than cover stories. That was the moment he knew he needed real answers, not the lines she recited. That afternoon, he dialed his cousin Patrick. They had grown up together, and while life had taken them down different paths, they stayed close. Patrick worked in private security and investigations, handling everything from corporate jobs to discreet personal cases. Noah laid it all out, her strange behavior, the objects, the mysterious receipt. Patrick listened silently, breathing heavy on the line before finally saying, "Give me a week." The next 7 days dragged on like a bad dream. Noah went through the motions, chatting casually with Ashley, helping with dishes, taking out the trash, yet underneath, every interaction was brittle. She kept her phone close, always angled away, her face tightening whenever he caught her off guard. Nights were restless, plagued by strange dreams of muffled voices and locked doors. He woke drenched in sweat, parched, and disoriented, as if his own life were pushing him out. And still, some part of him clung to the foolish hope that it was all a misunderstanding. On Friday, Ashley announced she was going out with coworkers to celebrate her manager's birthday.
Noah nodded without protest.
She appeared in a black dress he'd never seen before, paired with heels and a delicate necklace he didn't even know she owned. She looked radiant, radiant for someone else. With a quick kiss, she left, and he stood listening until the sound of her car faded into silence. The following morning, she was up early in workout clothes, earbuds in, water bottle in hand, heading to the gym as she'd been doing lately. She kissed his cheek swiftly and left in her new white sneakers.
Not long after, Noah's phone buzzed.
A message from Patrick. "Mind if I stop by?" 15 minutes later, Patrick pulled up outside. Noah opened the gate, his palms damp. Patrick stepped out of his car carrying a plain envelope, his face grave. Without a word, he handed it over. Noah thanked him quietly, carried it into the living room, and sat down, heart hammering.
He opened the envelope.
The first photo showed Ashley arriving at a hotel in the black dress from the night before, walking beside a tall, dark-haired man dressed sharply. Both were laughing. The next picture captured her holding his hand. Another showed them embracing on the sidewalk, waiting outside. The final photo caught them walking toward the reception desk, backs turned. Noah's stomach twisted, the floor dropping away beneath him. His eyes stung, but he didn't blink, locked on the images that turned doubts into undeniable truth. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was fact. Quietly, he rose, went to the bedroom, and pulled out a small suitcase. Into it, he packed essentials, important papers, a toothbrush, a charger, and a sweater Ashley had bought him years ago, the one he'd always loved most. The irony didn't escape him. Noah walked downstairs, passing quietly through the kitchen until he reached the living room. He pulled the photos from the envelope and spread them neatly across the coffee table, lined up, impossible to ignore.
No note. No dramatic farewell.
He didn't wait for confrontation or demand explanations.
His leaving was quiet but absolute. With his suitcase in hand, he stepped out through the gate. As he crossed the street, for the first time in months he felt steady, like he had taken back control. He didn't know where he would end up, but he knew he could no longer stay in a home where respect had disappeared. Hours later, Ashley returned. The house felt strangely still. She called Noah's name once, twice. No answer.
Then her eyes fell on the envelope and the photographs spread across the table. She froze, color draining from her face, her hands trembling as she sank onto the couch.
15 years rolled by.
Instead of breaking him, time taught Noah how to move with it. He rebuilt piece by piece, never rushing, allowing himself to heal at his own pace.
He met Megan by chance in a small bookstore downtown. They both reached for the same travel guide, and she was the one to smile first.
That small exchange grew into conversation, conversation into routine, and routine into a life together. Their family grew, and in time they had a son who carried Megan's humor and Noah's eyes. One Monday morning, Noah and Megan walked into their son's school, light-heartedly chatting about his report card and joking about something he'd said at breakfast. They carried paperwork for a routine parent-teacher meeting, expecting nothing unusual. But when the receptionist guided them into the assigned room, Noah froze.
Standing near the table was Ashley.
He didn't speak her name, but the recognition jolted him. Her posture was still upright, but her face was older, her eyes dimmer. The brightness she once carried had been replaced by weariness. She managed a polite smile, though it didn't quite reach her expression. Her hair was tied back plainly, as though vanity had long ago given way to exhaustion.
Megan caught the shift in Noah instantly. One glance told her this was not just any meeting. Ashley invited them to sit.
Her voice was professional, her papers perfectly aligned, her tone rehearsed. She spoke of their son's achievements, his reading, writing, how he helped classmates. Everything sounded polished, almost scripted. But whenever her gaze lifted, it found Noah. And in those brief moments, something unspoken flickered, memory, regret, or simply the shadow of what was unfinished. Megan noticed but remained calm. She didn't interrupt, didn't intrude. She gave that silence its space, the way someone wise enough knows that old wounds are scars, not threats. As the meeting closed, Ashley thanked them, her voice faltering for just a second as she said their involvement had made a real difference.
It was a statement she could never say about her own choices.
After their separation years ago, Ashley had drifted. She kept her job for a while, but ambition dried up. Promotions felt meaningless, relationships came and went without substance, and emptiness quietly filled the gaps. Without children or a lasting partner, her future felt unanchored. Eventually, she left the corporate path, choosing to rein as a teacher. Working with students gave her purpose, grounding her in a way her old life never had. The classroom became her refuge. Her smile never fully regained its glow, but small victories with her students carried her forward. Still, some regrets never disappeared. They simply grew quieter. That was why seeing Noah again, seated with a woman and son beside him, unsettled her deeply. The fragile ground she had built shook beneath her. She avoided saying his name, as though voicing it would undo everything she'd managed to rebuild. When Megan thanked her, Ashley only nodded faintly. Noah offered a simple thank you of his own, free of anger, but heavy with history. As they left, he held the door for Megan and glanced back. Ashley sat tidying her papers, eyes fixed downward, never lifting her gaze to watch them go. Crossing the parking lot, silence stretched between Noah and Megan. His eyes stayed on the ground, weighed by something caught between sorrow and acceptance. That moment in the classroom replayed in his mind, the quick meeting of eyes, the tension in Ashley's posture, the silence around his name. Megan said nothing, her restraint the clearest sign of understanding. She climbed into the car first, giving him room to process without pressing. When he joined her, she simply reached over, touched his hand, and smiled softly. That gesture alone carried more than words ever could. Still, for the rest of the day, Noah couldn't shake the image of Ashley at that desk. Her tired face, her attempt at composure, the distance in her eyes. Even over dinner, the memory lingered. For the first time in years, he saw their ending clearly, not in anger, but with closure. He remembered that night with the suitcase, the shock of betrayal, the moment his life fractured. Looking back now, it felt like it had happened to someone else entirely. What struck him most was that he had survived it without bitterness. Choosing to walk away quietly, to rebuild without revenge, had shaped him into who he had become. Later that night, after their son went to his room, Megan invited Noah to sit beside her on the couch. No questions, just presence. Today was strange, Noah admitted finally. Megan nodded, letting him continue. It was like reliving it all from the outside. I still felt something. I don't know what. Her answer was calm and sure. You cared once. And when we truly care, part of that never fully leaves. But that doesn't mean you haven't moved on. It just means you lived. Her words stayed with him. She was right. He had lived, he had loved, he had been betrayed, and he had begun again, now whole, with someone who understood him even in silence. That night, as Megan slept peacefully beside him, Noah stared at the ceiling. He realized his peace hadn't come from avoiding pain, but from choosing to remain true to himself despite it. Ashley was no ghost, only a memory, of a different time, a different man. And maybe the greatest strength was being able to look back without longing, without the need for every answer, and still carry forward with a lighter heart. Thank you for watching, the voice would say if this were a story told aloud. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time.